Welcome back to the Autoblog Podcast. I'm Greg Migliore. We have an awesome show for you this week. We're going to talk about the new Chevy Traverse, the BMW X5 M Competition, which I think really, applies more to the awesome description than, maybe some of the other things. But hey, that'll be fun. I've been in the Fiat 500e for the first time, which is definitely a different take, an electric take on the 500. We'll talk some news. Everything from the Model 2 was basically done when Elon Musk killed it or delayed it. So says the information. We'll talk about some new tariffs imposed on EVs from China, and 3 more Toyota/Subaru EVs are coming by 2026 as that partnership deepens. We have a mailbag question this week, so stay tuned for that. With that, we'll bring in senior editor for all things electric, John Snyder. How are you?
I'm good. I am enjoying this. It's like perfect driving weather lately, at least when it's not raining. You can roll the windows down. The roads are nice and dry. It's been good. And then at night we've had we had those beautiful northern lights, which was really something special to see.
That is the one night my dog did not demand to go out at like 11, which is really when, I think I could have seen him. And that was, I guess the trade-off is I didn't see the northern lights, but I did get like 10 hours of sleep that Friday night. I was exhausted. Yeah. I just fell asleep.
They were cool. They weren't as colorful as I've seen them before.
Yeah.
But on a 3-second exposure on your iPhone, it really, you could sort of look at them through your phone and just see beautiful colors. The photos make it look a little more dramatic than it actually was, but it's still a cool thing to see anytime you get a chance.
I wish I had seen it. I have seen them like up north where it's, clear skies, big skies, but I couldn't believe the things you were seeing from just people in like, the suburbs of Detroit with those big glowing greenish kind of lights. It was really beautiful from what I saw on Instagram, I guess. So it goes. All right, let's talk about some of these cars. The Chevy Traverse. You drove that recently. I went on I don't know if it was a prototype drive, but it was like a short drive at GM's Proving Grounds in Milford. This was in 2008, and they were launching this with the Saturn Outlook, the GMC Acadia, of course, and I'm missing one, the Buick Enclave. So they were like the 3 or 4 row SUVs that was meant to sort of articulate GM's move away from things like the Suburban and the Tahoe, big body on frame things. So I go way back with the Traverse. I honestly can't believe, for what it's worth, I was extremely young. That was like one of my first assignments that I was on the 08 Traverse in the auto business. Maybe it was 09. Either way, it's gone through a lot of iterations. And ironically, these big 3-row things never really did replace like the Yukon and the Suburban. Like people still love those, but these have a time and place.
Yeah. Now they're even going more toward that look of the Tahoe and Suburban. They're looking a little more truckish, which I think is a good look. I think I thought looked a little bit dull before. I think the new look is a lot more appealing. With it, we've got. I drove the new Z71 trim, this sort of off-roadish version. That everyone's sort of doing that now, from Rock Creek to Woodlands and Wilderness editions and things like that. This is sort of their version of the Traverse. It's got like a little bit of extra ground clearance and all-terrain tires. So I drove that and the RS, which is a little more stylish and big 22-inch wheels on it. I think it's a lot more compelling of a buy than it was before. The new 2.5 liter engine is, they dropped the V6 and went to a turbo 4, and it's got a little bit more power. Maybe doesn't sound quite as enticing, but it works really well, and it's more efficient. And overall, was plenty of engine for this car. And then, of course, new tech, like the new two digital screens, one for infotainment, one for the instrument panel. Looks a lot nicer. And yeah, they drove really well. I drove the Z71 sort of off-roadish, and like kind of across a field and some ruddy dirt roads, and sort of on this little trail through some trees and hills. I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked at how good that suspension was.
Wow. Okay.
That was probably the biggest selling point for me was the ride in the Z71. It was just, it was almost like a junior version of the Multimatic. It felt like it just really adapted well to the different terrain, soaked up bumps. This would be what I would want to drive on Michigan roads in the spring before they patched up all the potholes. It just really well composed.
I think you're like me. You like to drive like, what is it, the FX4 or 2 or whatever trim that Ford uses. I like to drive the off-road vehicles on the roads of Michigan just because that's what our roads are like, is off-roading.
Yeah, but you could tell they took a lot of care into tuning the suspension of both of these, and the RS has the same suspension tuned differently, and when I drove that was on like very smooth roads, but it seemed just fine. There wasn't a lot of chatter from the road through those big wheels. That one I'll be interested to try out on Michigan roads and see if it holds up, but the Z71 sure does.
Cool. What we've often panned Chevy for their interiors, the acres of hard plastics.
Yeah.
How's the Traverse doing?
He's still got some of that going on.
Okay.
Still a lot of black plastics. There's both of these had this sort of these black accent with red diamond pattern trim inside of it. It wasn't great, but it sure was comfortable. The seats were nice. Those materials were good. And the big screens cover up a lot of real estate where you would just be looking at black plastic. So it's there's less of it to notice, but it's still there. Still doesn't feel particularly high end. But I will say that Chevy did hint at the possibility of another sort of range topping version that would be sort of a more luxurious version of it with maybe like some chrome. I think maybe a little bit Denali-ish,
high country-ish or something.
Okay. And I'm going to drive the Acadia in a few weeks here, so I'm interested to see if the interior is an issue for you. That might be better choice. I will find out.
Yeah.
I don't know yet, but it is good to drive. It's roomy, versatile. The Z71 gets some terrain modes, a terrain mode and an off-road mode. The off-road mode allows a little more wheel slip, and the terrain mode is sort of like a crawling mode. Sort of basically turns it into a one pedal driver, just keeps it in first gear and brings it to a stop and holds it on an incline or decline, and makes it sort of really easy to creep over and around obstacles.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Because one would do that in a Traverse, right? That's I guess.
Yeah, if you never know, if you're trying to get to a campsite or something like that, it's perfect for that sort of thing. Like if I were going to go up to my cottage in the winter and want to, maybe my lane's not plowed and it's dirt. And, I would feel decent about that. I wouldn't be I wouldn't be staying home.
Yeah, good point. So it's interesting about living in Metro Detroit is you see vehicles just parked in driveways before they're even, really, really out. And I saw a Traverse and I thought it was interesting because my brain went through a bunch of different like mental calibrations. I'm like, wait, what is this large crossover like vehicle that suddenly looks more truck like than it used to? And I'm like, oh, that's the new Traverse. Now, I thought it looked pretty good. I think they've given it it's what the people want. They want kind of tough looking off-road themed vehicles, even when ostensibly they're buying 3-row crossovers, which are themselves substitute for minivans. So I saw it literally in some guy's driveway. It looked pretty good. I think it's going to be a good upgrade for Chevy and for those buyers who, veer toward it.
Yeah, I agree. And, it didn't change much in terms of actual size. I think the exterior dimensions are maybe even a little tighter than the last gen. So it drives pretty well on the road. I was, on these curvy roads, it drives a little smaller than it actually is. And, it sort of, when I was sort of off-road, I was surprised at how I was able to sort of maneuver around trees. And, there's a camera too in the Z71 that you can turn off, and it doesn't automatically that you can turn on, and it doesn't automatically turn off when you hit a certain speed or something. So you can actually use it when you're driving, which is nice. You can get a better look around you. Cool. And in front, and like directly in front of you and under you, sort of.
Well, I'm literally about to this week going to go drive the Equinox EV and the Silverado EV. I believe it's the RST variant.
Yeah.
So I'll be interested to see how all of this Chevy DNA carries through to these electric versions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I drove the Silverado work truck, and it felt like a Chevy, So I'm excited to see what you think of the RST. I'm excited to drive that. And then the Equinox, that's a sort of a big vehicle for GM. That's their new entry level EV until the next Bolt comes along.
It really is the linchpin of their electric strategy for like the next year or so until the Bolt gets built. And I think they're going to build it where the Malibu used to be built, or is still maybe being built, and soon will be discontinued. So
exactly,
it's going to be an interesting couple days for me. Looking forward to it.
It'll be fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, what's fun is driving an X5 M Competition. That'll get you to elementary school pretty quick, and your kids will enjoy that. I imagine it sounded pretty good.
Oh yeah, it sounded great.
what all did you do with it?
I just did a lot of driving, a lot of like family driving, and then would just sort of take it out, on some of the country roads that where it starts to get a little more curvy. It's really nice. I've got some roads just not far from me that it doesn't take very long to get there. It's not quite as good as like Hankard Road out by Chelsea, but it's that they're good roads, and you can carry a lot of speed and really nice sweepers. But I did a lot of in-town driving with it too. I'd get AMGs trying to challenge me and stuff, but I can imagine you do. It was, it's a good crossover. It's despite being an M, if you get in like an M5 or like some of the other cars, and you start getting all this carbon fiber in places you don't necessarily want it, like between your legs, and you get like really sort of brittle suspensions. You don't get that with the X5. It still remains comfortable for cruising around town and for hauling your family around, but it's just also happens to be really fast and pretty loud and decent in the corners. It's a little unruly. I could really get the wheels doing funny things underneath me with it. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, it's and some of the other M cars, I feel like the sound is at least from inside the car, you don't get the full treatment. But in the X5 M, I was able to actually enjoy the soundtrack, especially when I would switch it and start using the paddles to shift, and you can really coax a lot of noises out of the exhaust. It sounds really good, and you get people turning and looking, and this one was in this really cool green color. I'll have to find the color, but it was this beautiful, beautiful sort of forest green. It was called urban green. I really, really liked it. And other than that, it still serves its purpose as a sort of family-friendly crossover with, tons of cargo room. It's got that sort of split lift gate, the part that goes up and then the part that extends down, which is sort of a double-edged sword. It gives you an easy load surface for putting stuff in there. But if you want to, say, attach the car seat latch to the anchor on the back of the seat, you have to sort of crawl up and inside the car because you've got that extra length of cargo area when that thing's all the way open. But I'd rather have that and be able to fit all the stuff that you can fit in there. So yeah, good for all the family stuff and a lot of fun, when you after you drop the kids off.
Okay, sounds good. Now, one thing that blows me away is you're talking about 617 horsepower from that 4.4 liter V8. You get 13 miles per gallon in the city.
Yeah,
it's kind of rough, right?
Yeah, I was averaging about 15 miles per gallon. Even after I was driving it pretty hard. So it wasn't too terrible. But yeah, it's a lot of power. Definitely more than it needs. Like I said, like it's easy to break traction on the tires. If you give it a little too much accelerator from a stop or like through a corner, it can, and it's not as planted as a sedan, so it's a little bit more of a harrowing endeavor driving it like that. But yeah, it's certainly quick, very quick. Sort of, makes your stomach float inside your body, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, I think the latest M cars and crossovers really have that good exhaust note too. It's a little buzzy, but it still definitely is like it's got that sinister feel, almost like an insect that is coming to bite you or something. And I think they do a good job of affecting a very sporty performance with that sound.
Yeah, it's kind of always there. You're like always hearing it. There is, the exhaust mode that, you can make it quieter or louder. But it does sound really good. On downshifts, you get a little bit of a nice flutter. And then, when you're under heavy acceleration and hitting the paddles to switch it, you get a big sort of bassy boom out the back, and it gets your heart going for sure.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. So anything else we should know about the X5 M Competition?
Let's see. The one that I was driving, I will give you a price for it. It was $141,445.
Whoa.
Yeah. That included the upgraded audio system, which is $3,400, and then the M drivers package, which is $2,500.
Okay.
And then that urban green color, that's a $5,000 option.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then the $3,500 brown leather interior. So starts at about 122, 123 with destination, but then add a few things and it gets pretty expensive.
I mean, they tend to do that. That's usually how these
par for the
Chevy,
course.
how these things go. So Okay, cool.
This one, at least, it definitely like feels like it's, that expensive. Some cars are just like, what they're missing features or something. Porsche, I feel like you just, for the price you pay, you just don't get much content. It's all in the car. It's all the driving dynamics. But this, you get a pretty good luxury experience with it too.
All right, fair enough. All right, so I guess we'll do a little preview here of the Fiat 500e. This is the first time I've been in a Fiat 500 in years. One is coming through my fleet this week. I still have the long-term Mazda CX-90 also in my driveway. But for the most part, I've been driving the Fiat, which is pretty fun. It's, again, the first time I've driven a Fiat 500 in quite some time. It's a beautiful shade of red. It looks very Italian. Let's put it that way. Let's see. This is the first battery electric from Stellantis in North America, which I was unaware of, but it is. It's basically in the city class of car, as they say. So it's very small. It's about the size of, I would put it between a Honda Fit, and a golf cart, somewhere in between those. So it's pretty small.
A little bigger than a Smart for two, maybe.
Yeah, that reminded me of too. It took me back to driving a Smart 42, driving the Fit in, a Fiat 500. So they're pretty small. Side note: I did take the 500 to a wedding one time, and I put like 4 people in it.
Nice.
So,
the old 500. Sometimes I was kind of surprised by what you could sort of fit in there. if you don't care too much about humans being squished, I feel like you could almost fit like a keg of beer.
Oh, I think you
in
could.
The trunk.
I think you could. I think you could probably. Well, it depends on how big. Like a full keg might be tight. But I got a car seat in there.
A half barrel.
Half barrel. There you go.
Yeah.
So.
How'd the car seat work?
It was tough. I had to take off one of the headrests, which if you pull them all the way up, you could detach them. So that gets it's like a booster with a high back is I think what they're called. So the roof line is a little tight, but you get it in there. I don't think I would take my kid anywhere far like in this, but it's fun to drive to school and back, because it is so tight. And frankly, it is such a small car that, but it's great for parking lots. You can just the turning radius is crazy. Like I park wherever I want, then I just pull like a 360 and I'm out. It's the exact opposite of the Mazda CX-90 where I've got to dock it and then prepare my escape in a crowded parking lot. So that's good. I've only had it for a day. So it arrived this time yesterday. So maybe I'll have a full review next week. We'll see how much time I get more with it. But favorable first impressions. The starting price is $32,000. So you've got to really want Italian charm. Because to me, a car this small, that's a lot of money for 32 grand.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fun so far. It's electric. And it's apparently in showrooms now. Fiat tells me it was the first half of 2024, which is literally right now. There's only about, I believe, 6 weeks left in the first half of 2024. So
yeah. It's kind of a neat alternative to the Mini Cooper SE, because it gets a little more range. I think it's closer to 150, whereas the Mini Cooper is less than 120, I think.
Yeah.
So that's another thing it's got going for it. But I do like cute little EV hatchbacks. They're really zippy, and they're really great when it comes to tight parking lots and little one-way city streets. It'd be a great car for here in Ann Arbor.
Yeah, I could picture like the way knowing somewhat exactly where like you live, you could zip into downtown, park wherever you want. I mean, there's pretty good EV infrastructure in Ann Arbor, so you could probably park even maybe for free and juice it up. This one will give you, I think it gives you like 31 miles in 5 minutes. So they really play up on the quick charging. And then of course the overall range is, I believe it's about 151 miles. So, we'll see. This is one I really want to charge, I think, just because the battery's relatively small, and I'm intrigued to see like how quickly I can juice it up. 150 miles of range ish, they say. And it sings the sound of 500. There's an acoustic vehicle alert system is what it says. So it does make kind of fun little chimes as you enter and exit and turn the car off and on. So it's cute. Yeah.
Yeah. I look forward to trying that. especially if I don't have to drive the kids.
Yeah, there you go. It's like I said, I live so close to the school, just far enough to drive. So that's why I currently I'm throw them in there, just, enjoy it, have fun. It's a golf cart. I've driven golf carts that I believe are, or at least they feel bigger because they're so upright. This thing's like a hatch.
Yeah.
So, all right. So let's talk about the Model 2. This is an interesting story that kind of crossed our radar last week, earlier, even a few weeks ago. But the information had an interesting story, and I wanted to kind of lead off the news section with this. Before Elon Musk, he basically delayed or dry docked, postponed the Model 2 for his pivot to robo-taxis, which apparently we're going to even see one in as soon as August. What I found very interesting is the Model 2 was done, according to the information, which is an interesting tech site. If you, if you subscribe or you get their emails, which is what I do. So what do you kind of make of that? To me, that just seems so crazy to have the project done and then just pull the plug for now. I mean, I guess it's very on brand for Tesla, but I think that's so crazy.
Yeah, it's wild, but I mean, Tesla is all over the place right now with, laying off the supercharger team, hiring them back.
Yeah, some of them
today. Just all these things that are super important to the company, like an affordable car. It's off, it's on, it's off, it's on. I wouldn't be surprised if it does make its way to reality. Elon Musk could change his mind tomorrow and then decide to show a Model 2, when it shows the robo-taxi. But then, who knows how long it would take to get to production. Seems to always take a while for Tesla, but I don't know. I think a Model 2 would be a good addition to the portfolio. Just bring more people into the Tesla fold. Although you can get the Model 3 and the Model Y for cheap if you buy it the right time of year.
It's true.
But I think having something in the 20s, 25,000 ish would be a great thing. We need more of that stuff on the market.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, the average new car price has been hovering in the 40s, anywhere from 42, 45, 48. So a $25,000 Tesla seems like a really good deal to me. We'll see. When he made the announcement a few weeks back now, a lot of people the Model 2 itself was a little undefined. It was a little unclear if, hey, is Tesla going to do just a decontented Model Y or Model 3? Is it going to be its own model line? And now that's what also struck me about this report is it does shed light on the fact that it sounds like the Model 2 was pretty fully formed and ready to go. And I would be surprised if they don't use this at some point in the next year.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet, once they sort of, perfect their batteries and, that sort of thing, they'll bring it back. they're working on updated battery technology. I think that we're planning to put in this lower price car. So if they can, they're sort of juggling a lot of things at right now as well. Getting more cyber trucks out there, and the robo-taxi going all in on that. So and still got to launch a roadster at some point.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
frankly, that's the one I'm most looking forward to. I heard he had recently cut the 0 to 60 time like in half for some crazy figure that sounds like it defies the laws of physics, but it'll enter supercar territory apparently.
Oh yeah, that'll be neat. We've been waiting on that one for a long time though.
We have, and the semi.
Yeah, I mean, there's some semis out there, but I think there's other challenges with that aren't necessarily specific to Tesla, but in terms of infrastructure and just the logistics, finding the right sort of routes that where a battery powered truck makes sense, some of the shorter hauls and whatnot. But yeah, Tesla does have a lot going on.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about another layer to the Toyota Subaru partnership. We got word this week that Toyota and Subaru are going to work together on 3 new EVs by 2026. And really, it's the headline is Subaru to lean on Toyota. These are going to be Toyota basically EVs that Subaru is going to kind of repurpose and maybe do some development work for its own guises. I think it's a great move for Subaru. I'm a little curious to see what Toyota gets out of this. Although I think, looking at this from a high level, I think Toyota has kind of backed away a little bit from EVs. They've actually been a little slow to even move in that direction, trying to stay with hybrids and plug-in hybrids. So I think it does make sense in this sense that you can have Toyota, which is kind of hedging its bets. They get some scale from these platforms and thus probably monetize them better. And Subaru gets new products, which they don't have the money to really develop on their own. So I guess it's a win-win. It's also a little weird because I do think there's a fair amount of people that would cross-shop both showrooms.
Yeah. I mean, I think you nailed it with what they get out of it, but also there's the possibility that depending on how they set up the manufacturing, that could get done in North America or US, and maybe help Subaru qualify for tax credits, which would which it sort of needs. I feel like that's something really holding Subaru back from selling Solterras is the price. If they could put some cash on the hood, to offer a federal tax rebate, have it built, maybe at a Toyota factory, or that might really help them, especially if they make something more affordable too than the Solterra. Again, we need more affordable EVs. The marketplace needs more of them, and they're coming. But yeah.
Cool. Well, so one place it sounds like in the near term they won't be coming from is China, at least according to tariffs recently announced today. We are just kind of breaking this down, hours after the announcement from President Biden. I'd say a great contextual, approach to this is we've got the stories on our site, and we also have kind of an analysis from Yahoo Finance, our friends, over there, our sister site, where they break down really what vehicles are impacted by this, the part of the tariffs that, frankly, I think from an enthusiast and automotive perspective that Autoblog readers would care about. And I think what's interesting is in the near term, the implications aren't super intense. It's, obviously it's an election year, but there's only one Polestar that really is applied that is covered under this, and then a Volvo, which could be covered under this. So, I mean, that's kind of how you break it down. I think, when you look at some of maybe the rhetoric, it sort of, feeds into the narrative that it sort of prevents like a flood of, lower cost, EVs from China coming here. But, I've sort of said this on previous podcasts. I don't think that's going to necessarily be the case. It's going to be, different manufacturers are probably bringing over vehicles that they assemble over there. Like Buick has done this for years with one of its crossovers that is a gas-powered vehicle. So, but again, that wasn't controversial. It's not an EV. So, again, I think the best thing, check out the story. We have it from our friends at Yahoo Finance. And any takeaways from this from you, John?
Yeah, I think there's Polestar, who catches the brunt of it. The Volvo EX30 is going to be built in China, so I don't know how that will affect that. The EX90 will be built here in the States, so it won't affect that. Lotus is another one that's building in China, but they're lower volume manufacturer. They were planning to expand that globally. They might just have to wait it out a little bit longer for the U.S. market before they are able to get the foothold that they wanted here with their new generation of EVs. I'm interested to see, sort of long term, if it adds to inflation, all the different parts and things that go into cars that might be assembled elsewhere, but a lot of their pieces come from China. That's going to sort of raise the prices on things over time, and then, of course, it could start deepen the trade war with China, which will have unintended consequences here and there, and anywhere that does business with either of us. So it might not be that big of a deal for EVs, but just for the general economy, it could, especially further down the road.
Yeah, from the vehicle manufacturing side of it, it's a relatively small piece. There's a lot of it's more sweeping approach than just the automotive side of it. So so I mean, while we're talking about EVs, why don't we go to the mailbag? We have a mailbag question this week. And let's see, this week, cool. No spend my money. So if you'd love, we'd love to spend your money. If you'd love to send one in, that's podcast@autoblog.com. Justin writes in, hey, my name is Justin. Great podcast every week. Thank you. Question from a little bit ago. You guys were talking about Rivian. I had to go back and listen to it again because I didn't remember you guys talking about it. He was apparently at this EV show in Orlando, which sounds kind of cool. And he saw the new R2. Looks great. Nice. I'm just curious what our thoughts are about the R2 and Rivian. Thank you. Have a great day. Hey, Justin, thank you for writing. We've talked about Rivian a few times in the last few weeks, especially since they did that big new product showcase. That was, I want to say, February or March. But good chance to dive into it again. I'm pretty, I would say, cautiously bullish. How's that for somewhat hedging? Their products look really compelling, especially the R2, the R3. So I'm, they seem to have a strong plan, and they seem to be smart about trying to execute it in an orderly fashion. And they also, they're bringing in significant revenue, but they did have a rough first quarter, something that I think is enough to kind of maybe not put you on your heels, but raises some questions, because they lost like $1.5 billion, which is, there's no way to sugarcoat that. But, maybe growing pains, if they keep this up, it's more than growing pains, but it's the path to profitability is tough. So right now, I think, Rivian is, I think, on a positive trajectory. I think, much more so than some of the other ones, like say Lordstown that's out of business, Fisker that appears to be heading that way. So how are you feeling about Rivian?
I agree with you. I think Rivian is in a decent position. I mean, yeah, they're burning cash, and if you're looking at it from like an investor standpoint, I think they'd be a good investment. I wouldn't put all my eggs in that basket. It's definitely a pretty high risk sort of thing. But I think I've been seeing more and more Rivians, the R1s all over the country. Everywhere I go, I see them now. And people, friends, family are always asking me about Rivian. Everyone's very curious about it. And they've got their, deal with Amazon, providing the delivery trucks, which is, a big part of their business model, and presumably a big part of their future. So I think everything points to them being all right. It's just scary when you see, your bottom line sort of dropping, burning cash, running out of that runway, but they've still got, I forgot how many months left worth of cash to burn. And then they're coming out with the R2 and the R3, which look like very compelling vehicles as well. Cheaper than the R1s. And, the R3, I think, looks amazing. The R2 looks good. It looks like a shrunken R1S. But I think those a little more mainstream products will definitely help them in the future in terms of getting actual cars into people's driveways.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about the Model 2 earlier, which we haven't seen. We have seen the R2 and the R3, which I don't think they'll be quite that cheap. Rivian has been priced a little bit higher than most, many Teslas. But I mean, those two look, frankly, more compelling to me than whatever a Model 2 is. And Model 3s are very fun to drive. We just drove one. But, we'll see Model 3s, Model Ys. I think they're going to be up against it with some of these new Rivians. So that's kind of what we think, Justin.
Yeah. Fairly positive.
Yeah.
Not all doom and gloom. And yeah, cool products.
Sounds good. All right. Well, that's all the time we have this week. Thanks for hanging out, John. If you enjoy the show, please give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Send us your Spend My Money. That's podcast@autoblog.com. Be safe out there, and we'll see you next week.